Good afternoon, all. I'm the man between you and the lunch. Thank you for having me here. So, imagine you've never won in life. No award, not even a nomination, and you're dark, you're overweight, you're short, and you're poor. And the worst thing is, you know that you can never win. You just hope to survive. Well, I'm not trying to depress you. That has been the story of my life. I started 3 companies in the last 10 years, and the first company nearly made me broke. I went bankrupt, lost all my savings that I've earned. And during the whole process, I actually did not know how I was doing. So I started the second company all over again. But this time, I started the first company and I almost went bankrupt. I started the second company all alone, this time literally on the floor. I borrowed some money from my brother, and I did not actually even have the furniture. But this time I did manage to taste some success and see some money finally and became free. During the whole 10-year process, the process was actually very slow, and I can tell you the transformations are usually very slow, they're surprising, and they're unforgiving. But the compounding works really great over the longer run. And during the whole process, the thing that you do day and day actually compounds and makes you far better over a time for about whatever time that you're pursuing your career. So I've seen the transformation in myself, which has led to the transformation of people around me and the companies that I've built in the last 15 years. And if somebody were to ask me how I did it, I cannot actually answer that. I don't know how I did it. It's so surprising because when you're in the mid of transformation, you're just trying to survive and win the race by doing smaller bits, which actually makes up to a bigger bit. Long back, during one of the meetings, my manager was talking, and he said, "Plans are easy, strategies are hard, but tactics are the toughest." And what it basically means is, when you're trying to transform, you're doing your bits, but you're planning actually a big stuff. You're trying to do a big stuff, but you don't know where you will end up. And the way I see it, that most of the companies, most of the startups, most of the people that I work with, they're trying to basically assume that they will not change, they will not actually, they will do whatever they can do for the next 20 years, not worrying about the outcome. But that's not how it works. When you're in the grind, you're basically trying to survive, and for people like me who are underdogs, it's just not giving up. And for me, it was far more easier because I just had to survive. I did not see any success at all. So what can you do? How do you build a big business like that? For example, I started in 2012 with knowing just email marketing with very little knowledge of how it works, which gave me a bit of success to start with. I was finally able to buy some furniture. And when I did that, I was very happy for the next 2 years because I was getting some cash. I was running around doing a lot of stuff. But when the business started declining, I had to make some kind of an adjustment. I need to know new things. So I learned how video advertising worked, which worked for a bit of time. But over the period of 4 times, that business started to go down as well. And again, I have to make adjustment. I need to know new things to be able to sustain my business for a longer run. But this time, I found people who can educate me, who can teach me mobile advertising, and finally, I started business all over again. And finally, COVID hit us in 2020, and I was left with no cash. I had to adjust myself again. But this time, it was automatic. I've seen this grind already, so it was easier for me to adjust. This company, which I started, went ahead and raised over $2 million and did business of more than $15 million in the last 10 years. While being bootstrapped and profitable. Now the big question is, how do smaller startups and big businesses can do that? First up is the way that you manage your basics. Most companies or most people that I've worked with in the last 14 years, these are very large CXOs I'm talking about. They're afraid to actually go back to the basics. They worry that they will waste time. But that's not the case. When you're actually back to the board, you're rediscovering the wheel, you actually eliminate the risk of doing the same things over and over again. And you try to innovate and find stuff that you have not seen before. Look at Apple. Apple was launching a lot of products in late 80s and early 90s, doing a lot of stuff which was not making sense. Until September 23, 2001, iPod was born. Apple sold more than 125,000 devices in the first 60 days to their run-up until the Christmas. And after that, they launched iMac, iPhones, and so many other path-breaking products, which actually revolutionized the whole tech industry and finally became a cult. They were not afraid to go back to the basics. Next up is the people. Very well known, but very less understood. Most of the people, including me, they worry hiring smarter and better people for their companies and for their startups. Because they feel that if they come in, they will put them out of the place. But that's not the case. Look at Microsoft. They hired Satya Nadella in 2015, when the company was almost flattening in their growth curve. And when Satya came, he ran the company like a startup, taking big bets, investing in startups. They even took a bet on ChatGPT. And the last 9 years, the company has actually tripled their stock value to almost 2.5x of their starting value. It has transformed Microsoft what it is today. Next. Culture. This is my favorite part, and this is a very less known fact that culture is actually not your team meetings or your team outings or your dinners or offsites. It's actually what you stand for. What is it that you want people to know about you? How do you see yourself when you go out? What do you actually stand for? Look at Nike. Now, Nike actually never promotes their products and their innovations in their advertising and their communications. They seldom talk about it. They mostly care about their honor that they have for the athletics, the athletes and the sportsmen, which inspired millions of people to buying in their products. And they love Nike. I'm included. That's Nike for you. Build culture. Next. Your willingness to fail. Finally, this is very general. Everybody knows, okay, you want to fail, you want to, of course, succeed. But most often, the kind of CEOs and CXOs I have worked with, they always want to win, minimizing and avoiding their failures. But that's not the case. Look at Meta. So Meta has the prime example that you might have seen the last 2 years. The company has actually took a big bet on AR, VR, also metaverse, spending over $4 billion in the last 3 years. That is the highest ever spent by them on a single product. And they lost it all. The company really bled cash without actually getting any kind of a return. And the stock price was so low that there was a lot of hue and cry by the investors and the general public at large. But the company like Meta, such great in size, such big companies, when they're taking such bets, these are the kind of transformation that really inspire startup like us. Of course, they had to make some adjustments. Now they're back on track. They're optimizing cash. They're restructuring the company, and the stock value is back to $325, which is the highest in the last 3 decades. So the bottom line is, how do we transform? What are the top things that you can do? Well, it's very easy to be honest. Don't worry about the larger plans. Just talk about the kind of tactics and the day-to-day strategy that you can build, which actually adds up and inspire you to care about what you stand for. Thank you.